Can the Ragin Cajuns finally beat their kryptonite in the Southern Miss Golden Eagles? It's Locked On Sunbelt featuring the Sun Herald's Scott Watkins.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, always good and thrilling to catch up with our buddy Scott Watkins covering the Southern Miss Golden Eagles for the Sun Herald. It has not been a good year for Southern Miss. What were your expectations coming in? Because I'll admit I thought they were going to be better than they are.
Expectations were kind of it's really hard to explain that because you know that you have the two new coordinators. You have a lot of new personnel everywhere, but you expect improvement off of a 3-9 season, and you expect competitiveness, and you know that there's talent. So I think the expectation was across the fan base, and my expectation as well was going to be somewhere in the realm of 5 to 6 wins. And they're playing well under that right now. So they're certainly not meeting those expectations.
Yeah, but you're one of those guys that goes through every single Sun Belt game, and you play every single Sun Belt game, or not play it, but you make a pick on who's going to win which game every. How long does that take you, by the way? Because you go through every team playing every game. Does that take you a week? Does it take you?
Yeah, I do that. I do that preseason. I have it right here. It takes me a couple of days. I come back to it every now and then and fill it out. It gets easier once conference play starts sometimes.
And what did you have for Southern Miss? What a workout!
I believe I had 6 and 6, 6 and 6, 4 and 4. So that'd be 2 and 2 in non-con, and they of course go 1 and 3. But it's how they went 1 and 3, and that's important.
Right. So what has been an issue, unfortunately, for Will Hall, and we see this across America. It does not really matter what level you're at, whether it is, Power 5, Power 4, a major program. Florida State swung and missed with their quarterback this year, and they are paying for it. And when you haven't hit on your quarterback, and that's what's happened with Will Hall, the team has struggled to find any consistency, and Tate Rodemaker has just not been. I don't know if he was even as good as advertised, right? He was a 3-star coming out of Mississippi, ended up at Florida State, transfers back home. And I don't know if it's just trying to get used to the system or what do you think it is that has prevented Rodemaker from being better than he has been so far?
I can't say for sure exactly what the issue is. He's had moments, and he has been bad every time he's been out there. His first half against South Florida was really good, actually. I mean, 10 for 15, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were in the game. They were in the game for the most of that first half. The issue has just been terrible decision making. I mean, that's been the problem, and they've been so bad on third downs as well. And part of the issue is the run game has been non-existent, so they're kind of leaning on the pass more than they have to. But even before the run game, you check the numbers, the first down passing is just awful right now. I'm not sure what that is. Usually when you have a turnover problem, you have an interception problem, you're getting yourself into some third and longs and into some bad situations. It's not really the case. I mean, they're Rodemaker, maybe not Rodemaker by himself, but the quarterbacks as a whole, they have 3 interceptions on first downs already. And that's not good. They're completing like 50% of their passes on first down. It's really bad when they come out at first play, and they're actually running the ball fairly well on first down. They're averaging over 4 yards a pop. The issue has been on second and third downs running the ball. So they've just not been able to create any type of rhythm, any type of consistency. They can't throw the ball on first down. They can't run the ball on second down. So it's been an issue that it's just things are kind of piling up on the offense right now, and that's creating a situation where they've got 58 first downs through 4 games. That's the fewest they've had at this point since 2000.
All right, we're talking with Scott Watkins with the Sun Herald. It's Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We're talking Southern Miss Golden Eagles. We'll preview the Cajuns game, and then we will talk about the state of the Sun Belt just before we started recording on Tuesday for Wednesday's episode. Pete Thamel from ESPN reporting Texas State and the Mountain West talks have stalled. We'll get into that later. All right, who was supposed to pick up the slack for Frank Gore Jr.?
Well, that's Drake Clark, and I can't say that the run game has been the fault of Drake Clark. It's been the offensive line has just not created any running lanes at all, and they are getting beat when the box loads up on third downs. I'll have to pull it up, but they've not been able to create any type of push whatsoever for Drake Clark and the other running backs on third downs. Yeah, that's so much worse than I ever could have imagined. So as a team, Southern Miss is negative 23 rushing yards on third downs this year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Are they telegraphing it? Because I am one of the a couple of things. I hate when teams telegraph their plays, right? Like on 3rd and 4, you don't need to go 5 wide with a running back out of the backfield going in motion, because now you've taken that out of the realm of possibility. I like to have that opportunity, and I don't like to have a bunch formation either, where you're deciding, pick a direction and you guys can figure out what we're doing here. So has it been formations? Has it been play call? Or you think it's more along the lines of execution?
It could be that there's just a couple of bad plays there. I want to say that there was a bad snap that might be skewing the numbers a little bit, maybe a couple sacks. But I mean, for the most part, even on 3rd and short, 1 to 3, they've got 8 yards on 6 carries. On 4th down, they've got 4 yards on 4 carries. It's really bad whenever it gets beefed up, whenever it's O-line versus D-line, one-on-one, who's stronger. Southern Miss is losing that matchup almost every single time in the trenches, and it just doesn't. It hasn't gotten any better so far. 2nd down, they're averaging 3 yards a carry, so it hasn't been great. They're not running the football well. They're not moving the line of scrimmage forward. That's been a huge problem. It's been a big reason why they're not, creating any type of consistency moving downfield.
And then they did have the turnover problem against Jacksonville State. That was a ball game that they were on the road. They were not favored in. Jacksonville State did not look good earlier this year against, I guess it was Coastal Carolina. They were getting better. They just had a 2-point loss or something. Was that Eastern Michigan? Did I get that right? I'm not sure if I got that right. I'll check that while you answer. But then they got blown out because they could not hang on to the football.
Right. Yeah, that was I think it was 6 turnovers. It's been a while since that has happened in Southern Miss. They benched Rodemaker after the first 2 drives because both of those drives ended in an interception. Whether that was the right call or not, I don't know. John White comes out; he's a true freshman, and plays like a true freshman a little bit. He does lead a touchdown drive, but then with a chance to make it a 1-score game at halftime, he fumbles at the goal line. And I think at halftime, maybe you kind of have a conversation and say, we go back to Rodemaker, we go back to John White. Rodemaker, without the interceptions, has, in my opinion, he's looked good. I think he's looked good. It's been the terrible decision making. By rolling with John White, I think you're kind of throwing in the towel a little bit in that situation, and that's kind of how the second half just played out. You've got an offense that's being ran by someone who was in high school a few months ago. So it's that kind of situation. He had a few more turnovers, a couple more interceptions, and things just kind of piled on him right there. So that was an interesting decision that they made. They have got to clean up the turnovers, to say the least. I mean, that doesn't even have to be said, but that has been a major issue. They've given the ball away 13 times this year. They've played 4 games.
Yeah, by the way, I was right that Jacksonville State had come up just short against Eastern Washington. I don't know if that's impressive that I know that or sad. It is Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald. We're talking Southern Miss and soon Ragin Cajuns. Locked on Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, what's the Ethan Crawford soap opera about? What is going on there? Is he with the team? Is he practicing? He wasn't practicing.
He got hurt. He got hurt a couple games ago against South Florida. I don't have anything super solid. He could be back. He could be back soon. But based on what I do know, nothing on record, is that it could be a minute before he's back. It is a lower body thing, very, very lower body. I'll say that. But there's a lot of, it's one of those things where it could be a couple weeks. It could be he's done for the year. I'm not going to speculate, but it's that type of injury where there's just a lot of leeway, and he's got his own personal decisions to make as well.
Okay. All right. We will come back. We'll preview the Cajuns and Southern Miss after this. I'm going to first tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Remember, you get those great seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You get the lowest price guarantee. Your Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz and Scott Watkins back. Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Scott with his son Harold covering the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. All right, I'm not sure how much you saw. I mean, we actually had 3 impressive wins, and I'm not sure anyone was more impressive than the other. From ODU over Bowling Green to ULM going into Troy and beating the Trojans. And I'm still not sure if ULM has 300 yards passing in the season, but they have 3 wins. And the Cajuns hanging on to defeat Wake. Cajuns only have a close loss at home to Tulane. They're 3-1. They have an opportunity to have a really good season. They're relatively healthy. They got to overcome some ejections from last week. They are almost a 2-touchdown favorite, but they just have not been able to beat Southern Miss. A couple of years ago, I think the first play of the game was an interception. Cajuns turned that into a touchdown, but Southern Miss came back to win it. Last year, Will Hall took himself away from being the offensive coordinator, and Frank Gore Jr. ran all over the Cajuns. Cajuns fans will tell you that maybe a call or two didn't go their way, but nonetheless, Southern Miss cannot lose to the Cajuns. Cajuns can't lose to. We'll try that again. Cajuns always beat Texas State, but can't beat Southern Miss. It's one of those things. What are you looking forward to in this game? What can Southern Miss do to muck it up again against the Cajuns?
They have to extend drives, and they have to control the ball, keep the football out of Louisiana's hands, and not turn the ball over. And that's all kind of wrapped up into that. But and you have to stop the run as well. I mean, everything's going to be built around the line of scrimmage, which is why I think Louisiana is a 2-touchdown road favorite, because Southern Miss is not showing that it's even remotely competitive at the line of scrimmage. The plus that Southern Miss has on that side of the ball is that they are blocking for the pass very well. That's negated when your quarterback's throwing to the team in the other jersey. So it hasn't really been a plus for Southern Miss at this point. So they have to show that they can win these battles on the line of scrimmage, and they're running into probably a top 2 offensive line and running back group in the Sun Belt. I was really high on Louisiana coming in this year. I know Louisiana fans have hated me the last couple of years because I correctly called their mediocre teams. But this year, the Cajuns, I think, are going to be very solid. They're my number 2 team in the West, because I think that run game is going to be the closest that they've been to the Billy Napier era since Billy Napier. I don't know what Southern Miss. I mean, I know what Southern Miss can do, but I don't know that it will do it. They have to keep the ball out of Louisiana's hands and not turn the ball over and stop the run. That's it. That's how they do it.
Now, yes, I know how painful it is for you to pick the Cajuns to play well. I saw that prediction earlier in the year, and it's a legit prediction because, well, Scott's not a big fan of the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. Nonetheless, the Cajuns have given up a lot of points in the last couple of weeks, right? They have given up, what are we at? Almost 80 points, 41 to Tulane, 38 to Wake. So, I mean, Southern Miss got to look at that and say, we can put up some points on the board, right?
Yeah, I mean, what hasn't really been a problem, or at least against South Florida wasn't a problem, was the big play. That wasn't an issue. It's coming up with the big play. The issue is once they get into the red zone and once the defense loads that box, everything kind of gets ground to a halt. They've got, against FBS opponents, they've got 3 touchdowns in 8 red zone trips. That's not going to get it done. They in the red zone, they've got 29 rushing yards on 23 carries. That's not going to get it done. They're not finishing drives. That's been the issue, and as long as Louisiana, if they want to go bend but don't break, that's going to work. That's going to work against Southern Miss. Create some disguise your blitzes, disguise your coverages, different shells. You're gonna, if they roll out John White at some point, you're gonna create some turnovers. So there's just a lot of holes right now in the Southern Miss game plan that they've thankfully for them, they've had this bye week to take a look at them and figure that out. But they have got to show something against Louisiana, or else, in my opinion, this could get ugly.
So, and it is Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald. We're previewing Southern Miss and the Ragin Cajuns. So you're saying the Golden Eagles are pretty good moving it, I'd say the 20 to the 20, but I think we've changed it to the 25. So from the 25 to the 20, they're good at moving it, and they just can't punch it in at the end because, well, the red zone, the defense doesn't have to worry about the big play, right? There's no yards to cover behind them. They only have to cover 20 or 30 yards once you get in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, give up everything underneath if you're Louisiana. I think as long as when you get in that short field situation, even in a short stick situation, Louisiana will be they will have the advantage in that situation every time. So I mean, that's the key to it. I don't think it matters how many points Louisiana has given up the last couple of weeks. I mean, they played Wake Forest. It's not surprising that they scored 38. They have been very good on pass D. Which is very good. That creates a phenomenal matchup for them because obviously, as we talked about, Southern Miss is not running the ball and they've struggled to throw the ball. So it would shock me if Southern Miss would continue the streak on Saturday.
What impressed you about the Cajuns? Because I kind of, before the season, because I kind of went around in the circle, and even when the over/under, the win totals came out, even Cajun fans were like 8.5. They're going to win 9 ball games this year, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they can run it. They got an offensive line. The most talented group may be the young wide receivers. They got a good defensive line. They can rush the passer with the linebackers, and they got an experienced defensive backfield. The biggest question was the quarterback. And they have been able to keep one healthy so far. And so far they have this year in Ben Woldred. So what prompted you to pick? Did you pick the Cajuns to finish second to Texas State in the West? Yeah.
Yep. I had Louisiana number 2, 8-4. I actually had them. I think I had them beating Texas State in head-to-head. But it was, I mean, you hit on a lot of things there. But I think that it was the run game behind the offensive line. I thought that group looked as good as they've been in 3-4 years. The only thing that was kind of holding me back was that quarterback situation, but regardless of who it is, they are experienced. They've played a lot of football at this level. So, and when you're Louisiana, it's not entirely a ceremonial position, but I mean, hand the ball off to Zylan Perry. That's the majority of your job. So that's what impressed me. I thought Louisiana could play if they could kind of get back to what they were, where they played a lot of close games, but they won those close games. And I feel like Louisiana, and the way that they're built this season, they can kind of get back to that with that sound defense and that strong run game. So that's why I like Louisiana this season.
I think that's been the difference, right? Like Desimo has lost those close games that Napier won. So it looks bad, but he's not getting blown out, although coming up short. I mean, even last year against Jacksonville State, which I thought was a really entertaining New Orleans Bowl, Cajuns come up short, but they were in that ball game all game long. They couldn't put a couple of drives back to back together. It was the problem in that one. And Jacksonville State was really athletic and really good, actually. Quarterback was really good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is what it is. Well said. All right, we'll come back and talk about the state of the Sun Belt with the Sun Herald's Scott Watkins right after I tell you about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. So I was probably about 500-ish. May just be in one game under 500 last week. Much better last week than the previous week, but not nearly as good as the 5-1 or 6-1 that I did a couple weeks ago. We'll see if we can get back to that spectacularness. Is that a word, Scott? Spectacularness? You're a writer. Yeah. It is a word. Oh, all right. All right. We'll be back to wrap things up with Scott Watkins talking about the state of the Sun Belt on Locked On Sun Belt. All righty, Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald covers the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Let's talk about the state of the Sun Belt again on Tuesday evening. Pete Thamel, ESPN, reporting the talks have stalled between the Texas State Bobcats and the Mountain West Conference. I just didn't think it was a good match. The Mountain West Conference is not what it used to be. I can't imagine how much money they're going to get. It doesn't seem to be a close travel conference. I'm not sure why they were interested in that. I guess you always listen to when people call. What is your thoughts on Texas State potentially moving to the Mountain West and then turning them down?
Yeah, based on what I've heard, just from all the reports that have been out there, it seems like both the Pac-12 and the Mountain West were interested in Texas State and were having conversations and engaging that school. My opinion, I think it's very possible that Texas State really never had any interest in the first place in joining the Mountain West. I think obviously there's a more attractive conference between those two, and one of those leagues is poaching the other league. I mean, if you're talking to both of those conferences and you're seeing that happen, what are you going to think as a school? You're going to think the Pac-12. If they're interested in me, that's where I want to be. I don't want to go to the conference that is getting picked off by the Pac-12. So it's weird that we've seen so much verbal offers being put out that are being rejected typically throughout this realignment process that is now just dragged on so many years. An offer is not made until it's accepted. And now all of a sudden we've seen multiple Mountain West schools reject Pac-12 offers at this point. We just watched Texas State reject the Mountain West. It's still possible that the Pac-12 reaches all the way over to Texas State. I felt like if Texas State did leave for the Mountain West, another school that would have been in play, this is really important for the Sun Belt, would have been Louisiana Tech. They were in the WAC so many years ago, and that would give Texas State a travel partner if the Mountain West wanted to keep going. The Pac-12, running out of options. But if Texas State sits tight and they don't go Pac-12, I guess we're not doing anything. But it's all the linchpin now is going to be, Pac-12, Texas State. What happens there if they do leave? Sunbelt has to be extremely proactive because I think both of those leagues are not done adding.
Well, see, now it does have to be proactive instead of reactive, as we're again talking with Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald. Big believer in Keith Gill, but he has been very forthright in saying we're happy where we are with expansion, although someone should have seen, kind of what may have happened with the Pac-12, with everybody going to the ACC and the Big Ten, and even the Big 12, I guess. So let's say Texas State stays. Does the Sun Belt get proactive or just stays put until the next round comes and they lose? Do they go out and see if they can get a Western Kentucky, a Louisiana Tech, an Eastern Carolina, right? Do they try to go do that? Maybe I can't imagine they can go get Tulane, but
No, I think it would really come down to how bad Conference USA gets picked apart by this whole situation. Of course, they lost UTEP today. And then maybe the Sun Belt gets proactive because then you got a situation where CUSA they're dried up as far as what they've got. If Texas State sits put, I honestly don't see the Sun Belt moving on anybody. Part of that is a lot of people have been talking about Western Kentucky. We've already seen a deal fall through where Western Kentucky was supposed to be moving into the MAC. Middle Tennessee didn't want that. So they both stayed put. So can the Sun Belt pull a Western Kentucky without Middle Tennessee? And does the Sun Belt even want to have both of those schools? I think that's why the Louisiana Tech conversations were a lot louder as far as the reports that we've heard, because that fits the divisional geography of losing Texas State, and you don't have to deal with the politics of an attached brother there as well.
No, but you have to deal with the politics in Louisiana and all those Cajun people that do not want any part of Louisiana Tech.
That's true, but I've been hearing the opposite. I keep hearing that Louisiana, the school, would be perfectly fine with it.
Well, I would embrace that because again, it's very odd. And right now, this is kind of the football rivalry is basically. The Cajuns and Southern Miss is the rivalry, It could be in baseball as well. And then, South Alabama is in there. It's not ULM. They just don't travel.
No.
Either school doesn't travel up to Monroe. But they hate the schools. There is that hate with La Tech, which I think, brings a lot of passion and would bring a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would also just be really funny too. For years after, what's his name, the former AD, had the comment that we all know, everyone in the Sun Belt knows. Maybe they should move up to a league like Conference USA. That would be hilarious if everything came full circle and Louisiana Tech moved up into the Sun Belt.
That's right. I think Ragin Review has that meme or the video, a first picture on the phone whenever it comes up. All right. If Cajuns fans or Southern Miss fans want to read what you're writing about this week, what are you writing about this week as Southern Miss gets prepared to play the Cajuns, hosting the Cajuns, right? This is in Hattiesburg, right?
This is in Hattiesburg. I won't have any stories on the game until Saturday, but you can follow along. I tweet all about the games and what to watch for all the time. That's at Scott Watkins TU on Twitter.
He is Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great night.
Thank you, Dave.